Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to show you an interview that Peter Beck has done with NASA Spaceflight YouTube channel, and he has actually given some very interesting data for Rocket Lab shareholders. So I just want to cover a few moments of this interview that I think is of interest for us shareholders, and I want to give you my thoughts on it. So we're going to start with this first video, which is laugh you lose challenge. So if you can watch this clip and not laugh, you need to sell your Rocket Lab shares. If you're gonna laugh, it's a challenge, you need to buy more Rocket Lab shares, because this is how amazing Peter Beck is. And then the next two clips are going to be really interesting for shareholders. So please make sure that you're subscribed. You can follow me also on Twitter, same name as the channel, Vince is Bullish. You can come and say hi, and let's do the challenge. You laugh, you lose.
Because you can come up with all these great ideas to make reusable launch vehicles, and they sound all cool, and then you do the maths, and it's like you get 100 kgs to orbit. So you know it's all a giant kind of trade-off. So if you look at our first stage compared to our second stage, like the first stage looks giantly oversized to the second stage, and that's because we're bringing a lot home on the first stage, and we're making sure that first stage is good to go and again with minimum amount of refurb. So it's just all a big engineering compromise about where you put the margins and where you put the performance.
Yeah, I am glad that all I have to do is operate cameras and talk to people, because the amount of trades you have to deal with in rocket development, it's just like the most insidious puzzle I could possibly think of. So you said next year. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it is. We call it the spiral of doom, because basically, you'll be a little bit underperforming, right? So because of some structural, some inert mass, some parasitic mass. So you need to add a little bit more propellant, to null out that mass, and then you add a little bit more propellant, so you have to add a little bit more tank, and you've added a little bit more tank, so you have to add a little bit more propellant, and you very quickly can run off into areas where it just doesn't close, like you get nothing to orbital or negative payload margin. So you got to be, like I say, it's just one giant engineering compromise. Like, that you've done your job right when every engineer is unhappy, because if somebody's happy, then they got too much.
Oh, I love his humor. He's like saying so funny things with such a straight face. And yeah, I love Peter Beck. So I just had to show you this one because it was that funny to me, at least. Let me know in the comments what you thought. And remember the challenge. If you didn't laugh, sell your effing shares. And if you laughed, buy some more. So this is the next one, which I'm going to comment in the end why this was so important. And you're going to hear it also. So let's get going.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned earlier that someone also brought up was the fact that you were talking about the whole idea of being designed to build constellations, to help with the launch of satellite constellations. Is there any role for Photon in that, do you think?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about rockets today, but 2/3 of our business is actually space systems and building spacecraft. So, we have the Escapade mission we talked about, where we're going to Mars. We have the Vata missions. One of them's on orbit right now, soon to be deorbited. So that's quite unique in its own right. Then we have the MDA Global Star constellation. So we actually, building, constellation class spacecraft. And these aren't little ones. The solar wings are 10 meters in length, and the actual, core of the bus is about the size of a Mini. So these are pretty significant kind of spacecraft. And the whole kind of goal of Rocket Lab is to be an end-to-end space company. And so launch is super important. It gets all of the headlines and all of the fun, and it's super hard to do, and it's super rare, which makes it super valuable, which is great. And if you don't have launch, then you don't have the keys to space. And having the keys to space is super important. But our view is that launch is just one element of an end-to-end space company. So, having launch is good. Being able to build any spacecraft that you want to build is good. But really, the big prize is putting infrastructure in orbit. And I think that's become very obvious for everybody that if you can build whatever satellite you want to build and you can launch it using your own rocket, then it's incredibly hard to compete or to beat that as a business model. And we're kind of gently and methodically stepping our way through to that ultimate endpoint.
OMG! So this was basically the elevator pitch for Rocket Lab and the reason why I have invested. And this is what's so crazy with the opportunity in Rocket Lab, that you can model out their rocket business, the space services business, and you get a crazy valuation in a few years from now just on these. And then on top of it, you have this space infrastructure that he keeps talking about, and it's sort of driving me nuts because we have no clue what it is. And I would so want to hear, like, when are they planning to do it? What is it? What is the margins? How much capital does it need? I have so many questions and they never answer it because this is Rocket Lab's culture. And I think that this gives such an edge to retail investors who understand this, who knows that the company is going this way. And you will never get this from just reading the income statement and the balance sheet and comparing this company to other companies. You have to actually study the company, understand how Peter Beck works, how he communicates. But I believe that if they, just think about this. SpaceX was valued at 30 billion. Then they announced Starlink, and Starlink added 100 billion to their valuation. So it 3x'd the value. Sorry, it 4x the valuation. So it was 1x before, and it added 3x's to it. Okay, so let's say that Rocket Lab in 4 years is $5-6 billion, and then they announce something that is similar to Starlink. We don't know what it is. They're not saying what it is. It's driving me nuts, I know. But let's say that it gives another 3x to their valuation. It's like having a call option for free in this company. That would make the valuation to be like 24 billion just, within a year of the announcement. So it's a crazy opportunity. It's a huge opportunity, and Peter Beck is the guy to do it. He is the dishwasher engineer who comes from the land down under, and he has already done the impossible. He has gotten the keys to space. He's building satellites, and now he just needs to put this together. I mean, it's so little risk. It's nuts. So, sorry, I went on a rant there, but this is the bull case. This is why you should be invested in Rocket Lab. And now we go to the next one, which gives a very crucial detail to investors. That is a telltale sign of a very profitable company. So let's watch that one.
So the road to Neutron is ahead of you, and you're returning to flight with Electron. How do you see the next 2 years going, and how do you ensure Rocket Lab is able to continue and make it through the next 2 or 3 or so years? Because like we were talking about earlier, we've seen other small sat companies struggling. I mean, space launch is not easy. How does Rocket Lab survive the next 2 years?
Yeah, see, that's a much better question in that respect. So you're exactly right. This is hard. This is super hard, and launch is really hard. And I would say that the industry has suffered from a lot of aspiration and not a lot of execution. And what we're witnessing right now is the weeding out of the aspiration versus the execution. And Rocket Lab is not immune to that. We have to execute as well. But I think the one thing that we're really rigid on, and both culturally and just it's in our DNA. It's like everybody at this company gets measured. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And I expect everybody to measure us. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And that's kind of the core of the company, really, the culture of the company. So we're probably not the best marketing people, though we have great marketing people. Morgan and team, fantastic job. But you know what I mean. We're probably not the best at pumping everything up and whatnot. We just sort of quietly go about executing stuff. And as a public company, we have to be a little bit more public about the things we do. But I'm sure that you can you can remember a number of times in our history where we've just done something and then we talk about it.
Exactly. And if you invest in Rocket Lab, you have to understand that this is the culture, that they are not people who are trying to pump the stock. I really appreciate it. Like, for example, just if you listen to the last earnings call, there was so many analysts who were like, please give us numbers. What's the plan with Neutron? What's the cadence? How many are you going to shoot up? And he was so relaxed in his answers, and he was just saying, look, we're in the space industry, and yes, we have a timeline to complete the vehicle by 2024, but there can be delays. It is what it is. So he was using every chance that he had to not pump the stock, and I actually have grown to really appreciate this. It's like the opposite of Musk.
Right. We launched, surprise, we just put a satellite on orbit and it's called Photon, and there's a bunch of stuff throughout the company's history where we just sort of quietly go about and execute. And I think it's super important for us. The next couple of years are important years, but fundamentally, one of the reasons I took Rocket Lab public was, ultimately I'm trying to build a multi-generational, enduring space company, This company can't be like the Peter Beck show, because to our discussion before, like, everybody has a use by date, either forced or unforced. So when it's when they put me in the ground, the definition of success will be a thriving and successful Rocket Lab continuing on. And by going public, you kind of enforce that to happen, because you have to be profitable. Like, if you want a company to live on, in prosperity and in the future, you have to build something that's actually profitable, and you have to deliver the things that you kind of said you need to deliver, and things that you aspire to achieve. So going public for us is like the forcing function, or one of the reasons, and one of the forcing functions to build like an enduring company. And Neutron investment aside, if you take that out, Rocket Lab is actually a nice little profitable company. It's really good.
Did you just hear that? So, putting the Neutron investment aside, Rocket Lab is a profitable company already. So that means that if they ever come in danger of running out of money, and the Fed has still high market rates, everything is bad in the world, they can just pause the Neutron development. I'm not saying they should, and I hope that they never come into this situation, but it is a profitable company. And the reason why it's so important, this one, is because when I look at, past investments that I didn't do or did do, what can I learn from it? Like, for example, Tesla had a lot of telltale signs that they are going to be a very, very profitable company. And one of them was that they were still losing money introducing the Model 3 and ramping up the production, but they had the highest automotive gross margins in the industry, or close to the maybe Ferrari had higher, but out of the mainstream manufacturers, they definitely had the highest automotive gross margins. So that meant that once they can get the operation under control, they were really, really effective at producing the cars. And that should have been a telltale sign that when Tesla reaches certain volume, they're going to be crazy profitable. So now we know that it's very rare that rocket companies are profitable. Very, very rare. And actually, we don't know of any. Probably SpaceX is profitable with Starlink. Blue Origin, for sure not. And there's not really, Astra is just going bankrupt. And the fact that these guys have reached profitability without Neutron is a crazy bullish sign for the stock. It means that this guy is a genius. He knows how to control his people. He knows how to budget. He knows how to get things done with very little money. And that is basically the history of Rocket Lab. So this was a very, very important sentence to me, and I felt like I had to show it to you.
But, we're making those investments into Neutron, right now, because we think, ultimately, that's going to set us up for being a much larger company in the future.
Yes, please.
So it's kind of, I look at it in kind of two ways. Half of me is kind of happy that we're starting to actually, weed out the aspirational from the executors. And of course, the downside is, some people are losing a bunch of money, and there's been some just amazing engineering feats done, created and achieved, and teams built. Amazing people have done amazing things. But at the end of the day, it's all for naught if you can't be profitable and sustainable at the end. And I think capital's been flowing into the space industry, which is wonderful. But it has to flow in a way that delivers returns ultimately for everybody.
So it's fantastic. I think he's like kind of sneakily talking about Astra and probably many other companies. That company is basically going bankrupt at this moment or being taken private. I don't know, but they're really struggling right now. I really love how he's stressing profitability. He's just an insanely good guy. And I think that this interview is a 1.5 hour long interview. You can watch it if you want to. These were definitely the most important parts that I think that we needed to see as investors. And it just confirms my bull case in Rocket Lab. I almost said Palantir. Anyway, so in Peter Beck, we trust. I love this guy. He's like more than half the reason that I invested into Rocket Lab. So I really, really love him. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys also. Please make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.